Welcome to Inside the Race. I'm your host, Steve Letarte. We're going to look back on New Hampshire, the Magic Mile, where Ryan Blaney went to victory lane. But there's a lot to discuss. For that reason, I need a little bit of help. So joining me in studio today, Kyle Petty, Jamie McMurray. Guys, welcome in.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having us.
He looked at me very nervous, like I was going to make fun of him. I'm being nice.
I like having Jamie over here. Like that's what you were over there.
I would say last week
he's going to throw.
I was nervous over there. Listen, we could talk about Blaney, but I don't think anybody was that surprised. We had 50 minutes of practice with 2 sets of tires. He was the best car. It was a little bit more challenging that they were looking for. They had to take 2 tires at the end. I actually want to go to the beginning. Let's start with racing in the rain. We don't see it very often, only really the 4th time I know of at an oval. KP, what do you make of just the concept in general? A fan, or would you prefer to see dry racing?
So I think racing in the rain, especially when they drop the flag, proves something that my dad used to say all the time. Speed has nothing to do with a good race. Speed has nothing to do with racing. They were running 5 and 6 seconds slow, and they were doing some racing. You know what I mean? They were looking for stuff. They were driving. So I enjoyed it. I think it's good for a flat track. Okay, I'm not sure we'll ever go to a bank track, and I say this because many years ago, a tire engineer said it's easier to run through standing water than it is to run through running water. And water that runs down a bank at Daytona and you're running through that, you just hydroplane. You can't get anything, because it's coming this way and you're going that way. But I really enjoyed it. I would rather see, and I know we've had this discussion, the teams make the call when they go slick and when they do that kind of stuff, because I just think it's, You're just saying, okay, we're going to go out here and we're going to run this first part of the race in the rain, but really it's just a caution, period. Well, and then we're going to let you get up.
So let's just set the stage to what KP's talking about. When we go to wet weather tires at an oval, first rule is it really can't be raining because of vision. So when the rain stops, we blow the standing water off the racetrack, we put them out there. But at a road course, as a team, you get to decide slicks or rain tires. It's all part of the strategy. Currently at an oval, NASCAR deems it's wet. Everybody's on wets. Now, we have advanced to if the caution comes out, you can put a new set of wets on, which is a little bit better than it's been. But you still can't change makes. You're looking for at the road course, which is like who dare goes to slicks first. I don't think he's wrong, and I actually think that's the direction the sport's going. I think they're still building confidence.
Yeah, let me back up just a bit here when you mentioned racing in the rain at Loudon, because last week when we previewed Loudon, they asked my opinion, and I'm like, not my favorite racetrack because it's really hard to pass on. For me, this was an off weekend, right? I wasn't doing TV at the track. When I turned the race on and I saw it was going to rain, I was like, "Oh yeah!" I'm like, I'm not leaving my TV now. I want to see how this goes because we've seen it a few times, and it is really exciting to see who can manage the rain, how the teams do that. But Steve, as you're talking about, should the teams be in control of when they put slicks on or when they do rain tires? 100%, I think they should, because that adds a whole different element. And I think it also lets the drivers and the teams be in control of when they want to take that chance, because we know that slicks are significantly faster in most circumstances once the track dries than the rain tires are going to be. And that is so compelling to watch guys try to manage that. And it's not just manage it on the track, it's getting on and off of pit road, because that's going to be a little bit slick. And to me, that's probably the only thing holding up NASCAR right now is how do you balance getting on and off of pit road with the slick tires and not putting the pit crews at a big risk.
Yeah, and we've seen it on the road course. I think Austin Cindric went to slick somewhere before everybody else did. And then as the track dried, he was hauling the mail. Yeah. I mean, he forced everybody else's hand. That's what we see when you come to pit road early on a dry racetrack or when you short pit. You see another crew chief and another driver call the field's hand and make them do things. I think NASCAR takes that out a little bit on the oval. And it puts it back in the driver's hands and the crew chiefs. And it's hard. I was running the 24-hour race at Daytona one year and was running like 6th, and it started raining. And I worked my way up to 7th or to 2nd. And the crew chief came on and said, "Let me know when you need rain tires." And I keyed up and I said, "Well, how will I know I need rain tires?" And he said, "Come in now." You know what I mean? Because I had no clue. But you learn that over time. And I think that's where SVG and Zilich and those guys who have that bank of knowledge on that field are a little bit better at this time.
So I will add this real quick. We talk about how it looks. I'm just going to look at it from a fan because I was up there this weekend. I'm from New England, right? They're the people that I care for the most. They came out and they filled the grandstands. 7:05 was darkness by NASCAR. If we have to wait for the rain to pass, and put jet dryers on a flat racetrack where the water doesn't run off, with cracks as wide as my phone, and try to get all the moisture out of that racetrack, I don't think we see 301 laps before 7:05. I think the start is delayed so far that we don't see a full event. So
Either
for
that
me, I was just happy because the people that paid, forget TV, I know I shouldn't say that, I work for TV, but the people that paid their hard-earned money to buy a ticket, that came out in person, they saw a full day of racing.
Yeah, well, and listen, I'm just saying we have to go back to it was pretty exciting to watch.
I was
The way that the drivers pick where they want to run. I mean, the rule of thumb in the rain is you just don't run where the rubber is. When the rubber gets in the asphalt, it just gets really slick, and so you run as high as you can or as low as you can. And Loudon produces this epic where there's like this fresh asphalt in the middle. You either run the apron or you run all the way above it, and I love that. I think it just adds another layer to the race. And you said something that I thought was really interesting, because we get caught up in speed so much of like how fast they're going or how fast they're not going. And the reality is the speed is not what makes a great race. It's watching guys maneuver and try to make the most out of what they have.
Limit of grip, I think is what makes a great race.
Yeah,
they were all very grip limited. Not a surprise, Josh Berry runs well at New Hampshire. This is a guy that has a second and a third place finish heading into this weekend. He was very good in practice. I would say maybe not as good as Ryan Blaney, but in the race at times I thought better than Ryan Blaney. Had some feisty radio. To remind the fan who doesn't know, Wood Brothers have announced they're moving past Josh Berry. They're going to actually put Jesse Love, who's currently in the O'Reilly Series in this car. Josh has yet to announce anything. Dale Jr.'s been on his podcast saying, man, he hopes this guy gets a ride. KP, you've been around the sport forever. What do you make of the whole Josh Berry situation? What's your opinion on Josh, the change Wood Brothers had to make, and where they stand today?
So I think they had to make a change. So we're and I'm kind of tired of hearing this, and I'm going to say it that way. And they're like, so he's run the last 4 or 5 races, he's run the top 10, and they're like, well, he's auditioning. You're auditioning every week. That's what you do. You audition every time you set your butt in one of these things for what your next ride's going to be. We're not all Jeff Gordon. We're not all Jimmy Johnson who go to a place and stay your entire career. In the old days, guys moved around. You auditioned every week. So for 105 races, 100 and some races, he was just a guy on the racetrack. He averaged like a 27th place finish in the first 21 races of the year. And now he's averaged 5th. So has he picked it up or has the car picked it up?
Right.
I don't know what it is. My point is this. I think Josh Berry is a good race car driver. I don't think Josh Berry is a great race car driver. I think the potential that a Jesse Love has, the potential that these younger drivers have, there's a lot more blue sky for them than there is for a Josh Berry. And I think when you look at this team and what this team is and where this team needs to go and their place inside the Penske organization, with a Joey Logano, with a Ryan Blaney, with an Austin Cindric, then they need another driver who contributes and makes things happen. And I think they had to make the call.
So for me, the hardest thing for me to do is to decide the talent of a race car driver because it is the man in the machine and you cannot separate the two. They are tied together. So I think only time will tell whether this call is a better move for them. They obviously made it for a reason, whether it's business or not. Jamie, I want a different angle from you. You have a son who's trying to become a race car driver, professional race car driver, following his father's footsteps. Congratulations, by the way.
Yes.
2 wins at Hickory this weekend.
Yep.
So let's just talk about the business. Forget right or wrong.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the business of drivers, because that was more of Dale's comments, is that he was a little concerned the business wasn't going to allow Josh Berry. When you set the landscape and explain to the fans, we see Zilich get these opportunities, just signed for the 48. What is Josh Berry battling? Right, number of seats, manufacturer support. Like what do you think is either the landscape or the challenges for Josh Berry or any driver trying to find a seat for next year?
So I would tell fans the same thing that I tell my son, and that is there are very few people in today's world that get to make it strictly on talent. It's ultimately about bringing partners along with you and trying to find those partners at a young age and develop or advance with them throughout your career. It's unfortunate that it's that way, but that is the reality of it. And you mentioned Zilich. I followed his career before we knew who he was because I knew him from karting because my son was karting at the same time. We came in right when Connor was leaving, so I knew that name. But he found funding at a different level to get all of these opportunities, and then he capitalized on it. And the big difference, like what Josh has going against him, is his age. He's 36 years old now, and listen, when you get to that age, people aren't willing to take, or you don't get it mulligans at that age. You have to have already proven yourself. Where if you're like Connor Zilich is the best example, right? Last year, hottest commodity there was. Like, I mean, and I was on that bandwagon of that's who you have to have. This year, he seems very, very, very average. Like it's just
Below.
And you,
I mean, it's been a
you
rough
see
year.
a lot of mistakes at him. But what I can tell you about Connor specifically is I remember when he won the Rolex 24, I sent him a note because that was really his first big win. And I'm like, and I remember watching the race, I'm like, he's going to win in ultimately his first shot at this. And that race is hard just to finish, much less be able to win. And for the next 12, 14 months, everything he got in, everything kind of fell his way. He did a great job driving, but he just had no bad luck. And then for the last 12 months, it's like everything has went against him. But with Josh, I think he has age going against him. And when you come in at that age, you have to have results immediately. I would defend Josh slightly here, and this is why. Well, timing is everything.
Yes.
And for that organization, it's the Wood brothers, but it's directly linked to Penske. So they get their cars. Their cars are set up over there. If you look at Joey Logano, who's won 3 championships, he was kind of struggling as well. Blaney was having success, but if you can only compare yourself to your teammates. That's the only way I think it's fair in our sport to compare where you are. Blaney was having success, but the reality was Joey Logano wasn't having that much success at the same time. The timing, though, like I think the reason we've seen 4 top 10s in the last 4 races is because if you look, Logano's won 2 of those and Blaney's won 1.
Right.
Those cars have all gotten better, and it's unfortunate for Josh, but his timing of getting in that car, Ford's lack of success overall in the sport, it did not work out for him. And unfortunately, I don't see him getting another. I know Dale wants him to get another chance, but I don't know where he's going to go because there are too many young guys coming along that people will take a chance on.
Yeah, and I agree 100% with all of that. Josh is a square peg fitting in a round hole. And what I mean by that is this. We didn't know who Josh Berry was at 18. We didn't know who Josh Berry was at 19. We did know Connor Zilich. We did know Carson Hocevar. We did know Ty Gibbs. We knew these guys. They were already coming along. He's only here, and let's just be honest, because of Dale Jr. Because of Dale Jr. pushing him and pushing him out there, putting him in his cars, and giving him that voice and giving him that platform. So he came and circumvented the regular way that you come up. So now that he's in, when he doesn't find the place, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that I guess that safety net to fall back on. Because if I have an O'Reilly team, if I have a truck team, I'm looking at Jamie's son. I'm looking at someone that I don't know what their potential is, but I'm willing to take a flyer on their potential over what I've seen from Josh Berry so far, because I know what I've got. We've gone through this a million times in Cup racing. If we go all the way back to a number of drivers, and I could list them, but I wouldn't. You knew what you got when you put them in your car. You knew what you had. You knew what you were going to. And yes, there was excitement because you had a new driver, but you knew you were going to get a lot of 12s, a lot of 13s.
I think the other thing that sticks out to me in Josh's situation is it's very similar to what Zilich is going to go through next year. Josh got to get in a premier car. Like this is one of the best cars on track with the relationship with Penske, the championships they've won, the races they've won. And very similar to Connor, who's going to get in the 48 car in a couple of years. It's the ultimate opportunity. But if you don't win and capitalize when you get in the ultimate opportunity, there's just nowhere beneath you to go.
Yeah.
Because if you're in a lower level organization and you do average, it might get you the opportunity to move up. But once you're at the top, if you don't perform, I heard Rick Hendricks say this about Connor. He's like, we hired him to win championships. And so that pressure that Connor's going to go through, it's at a different level. Every driver wants that until you get it and you can't capitalize on it.
Yeah, if we go back, last thing, if we go back to ancient history in this sport, there were A-level cars, B-level cars, and C-level cars. And Rusty Wallace started in a C-level car.
Yeah.
Mark Martin started in a C-level car. And they climbed that ladder to get there. and to get to that A-level car of a Roush, of a Penske, of a Raymond Beetle at that time and win championships. That's what everybody did in the sport. So you could come in at 21 or 22 and finally get to that A-level car at 29 or 30. When you get to 29 or 30 now, if you're not winning races, sorry, because that is the downside right now, because your career can be over if you don't perform when you're 20 or 21 years old. You need to go find a real job.
For me, simple enough, where is Josh Berry? First of all, I think he's a very good race car driver. I think that the business, and Jamie, you said this and it didn't click until a minute ago. I think it was an age thing looking at it now. I think that Josh Berry can drive. I think there's a little blue sky with the next guy.
Well, there's no doubt he can drive.
Yeah,
he's
he can
won.
drive.
He's
so I
won
guess
at the
my point
highest
is,
level.
I
Like,
don't
there's
think
no
he
doubt.
got let
He's a
go
good
because of
driver.
his
Yeah.
talent. I think he got let go because there was young driver in O'Reilly looking for an opportunity, and they feel like they could just go younger. That's the statement I would make. But what I would say is, what I hope the business allows, if budgets weren't an issue, and these teams were all funded on their own, without the partners, you explained, and I was the director of composition or a president of a multi-truck organization or a multi-O'Reilly car organization, there is invaluable information from an older, wiser driver who could be around some teenagers or some young 20-year-olds and help them as only a driver can help another. I could talk to a driver till I'm blue in the face, but I've never sat in the seat. Jamie can do it. You could do it. Josh Berry could do it. From just coming out of the Sunday show, think about if your son could enter a two-car team and his teammate was Josh Berry. Think of how much information Josh could instill in that young man.
Do you guys not agree, though? Because I feel like we talk a lot today about that people paying to be here or having those partnerships with them. It's honestly been that way for a long time. This isn't brand new. And
I actually would say it's going the other way. I believe that it was more money driven 10 years ago than it is now.
Well, I'm with you, but I think the something that gets lost in all this, and Justin Allgaier is going to be a great example. Justin Allgaier's relationship with Brandt has carried him through. He's had this crazy success as well. But even if he hadn't, the relationship that he built with that partner was going to keep him in this longer. It was that way for me, whether it was with Bass Pro Shops or Cessna or McDonald's. I did a really good job as a driver making sure those people were happy. And so when you had down times, that carries you through. So it's not always that a driver is bringing a check and writing it. It's more about that they're managing their situation the best they can.
You know what I complete it too, because everybody's okay with this in other sports. A driver to partners is when you talk about another athlete in the locker room, because they don't have to do with partner, right? You have the best athlete in the world, but if he poisons the locker room, nobody cares. He's got to move along. That's kind of how I look at it, right? It's the out of the car thing when he's around. In other sports, it's his teammates. In racing, I think it's the partners and the people paying the bills. It's that time of the week again. Weekend Winners brought to you by Powerball New Hampshire edition. KP, who is your winner from New Hampshire?
Noah Gragson.
Top 10 finish. Good run.
Good top 10. And just signed a new contract. So let's produce. Once we sign that contract, let's produce. Let's show them they made a good call. So I think he's just had one of those years that's just, he's had some moments during races, but he's not put together a whole race, and this is a whole race.
Yeah, I'm going to go Bubba Wallace. Looked like he maybe had a shot to win at the end of the race. And as I look at Bubba's season in general, you think about all the success that Reddick had at the beginning of the year. I know what that's like to have your teammate have all this success and you not. I'm glad to see him be able to get it back on track, go out and run second, puts himself in a great position starting the chase.
I'm going to go RFK, the whole company, Roush, Fenway, and that's why it matters. Fenway, Keselowski. Fenway is from the New England area. All three cars were inside the top 10 most of the day. Great pit calls by both Preece and Buescher. Brad Kay fought his way up there. So I thought RFK as a whole had a great weekend in New Hampshire. And there you have it, your weekend winners brought to you by Powerball. Winning crew chief joining me now, Jonathan Hassler, crew chief for Ryan Blaney. You see over his shoulder the championship trophy, reminding us all the success these two have had together. Well, it was a successful trip to New Hampshire. What did you make of the weekend? Like, you guys were dominant in practice. I had you as the best car on Saturday. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's definitely fair. Our short track program has been really good, and we knew this part of the schedule would present a lot of opportunity for us. We had really good speed at Iowa and Richmond, and obviously with the pole at both of those races, and really didn't close those out. We felt like we left a little bit on the table to be able to close it out at New Hampshire is definitely great for us.
What's the magic? I mean, come on, man, you guys. This is a Team Penske question, not fair to be a 12-car question because I feel like your speed at the mile and a half is better than the organization. But when you guys go to this low downforce, high horsepower, short track package, Team Penske is nearly untouchable.
Yeah, I wish I could say that I knew the secret, that it was something special, something magic that we did each and every time. But there's definitely not. It's everybody kind of on all these, 4 teams, including the Wood brothers and within this building, is just always, continually looking to be a little bit better. I don't think, we didn't bring the same setup that we ran a year ago at New Hampshire. We definitely just are all continuing to try to evolve and find, little bits here and there and stack them together. And that's, allowed us to all have some continual success.
Started in the wet. Let me get your thoughts on the wet. Let me not just jump. I was going to jump right over it because it was pretty uneventful, and I look at running order for you guys, which is a great sign. I know the fans seem to be excited. I won't lie. As a television analyst, I was thankful that we just didn't have a delay. I'm glad we could get going. Where do you stand on this wet weather, specifically at the ovals?
Yeah, I think, it's definitely a good thing to be able to go out and put race cars on the track and knock laps out, instead of having jet dryers go around and get us a little bit further into the race. I kind of enjoy it, honestly. The tires are really different. You really have to make some pretty decent setup changes to try and, go around the track and make speed. It's a little bit like a dirt track too. The track definitely goes through a lot of different phases. It starts off pretty low on grip. But as cars continue to run, they kind of make a dry lane. Guys kind of move around a little bit to save tires. I grew up doing a lot of dirt racing, and I think it's kind of fun. I enjoy it. It's definitely not something that I wanted necessarily this weekend. We had a lot of speed in our car. We didn't need to have a wrinkle. We could just kind of, have everything status quo, a normal event, and things would hopefully be good for us. Really all I wanted to do was just survive, like you said, and that's kind of what we did. We kind of held our running position. We were able to kind of reset when the track dried out, and then that's kind of when the speed of our car really showed up.
Well, then it's your fault that you understand it so much that we're going to go down this rabbit hole for a minute, because now that I have a current crew chief, I would prefer that you guys got to choose stickers or slicks or reins like you do at the road courses. 2 questions. Are you in support of that? And B, when you say they're different, is it mostly the stagger? Like if we built a set of rain tires that had a little bit of stagger in it, do you feel you wouldn't have to have the quote comp caution to make adjustments? You could kind of do it more on the fly?
Yeah, the stagger is certainly the big thing, but the compounds are different too. Once you take out the tread, the tire width that you lose from the tread as well, that's a lot different. The tires, I think, because of the surface area of the tire is so much smaller, they're really heat sensitive, which, like I said before, kind of puts a little bit in the driver's hands. They can definitely heat them up, cool them down, and kind of control their speed a little bit that way. I think the adjustments are big enough that, I probably prefer the comp caution. I think that puts us in a situation where we can really dial the car in, and we're not really having as much of a, trying to sacrifice time on pit road versus, the adjustments that we think we really need to do to optimize the car. So I kind of prefer that at the moment, especially, when you think about the safety of the guys on pit road. I think if the pit road is, any amount wet, I think we certainly need to have the competition style cautions.
Well, enough about the rain. Let's talk about the race. You kind of get through the rain. We get into the second stage. You take control of the race. You win the second stage, and then you have a hiccup on pit road. Lost some track position, a little bit because of a stop, but to be fair, a little bit just because there was a couple stacked cautions together and the field get jumbled up. I want to talk about the call to take 2 tires on the final pit stop. Was that the, quote, right call for the 12 or the only call for the 12 to try to win the race?
I really tried to, our whole group tries to kind of look through the whole race, try to think through all different scenarios that could happen. And really you have to kind of think through every different scenario of, if I'm running top 5, if I'm 5th to 10th, if I'm, backside of the lead lap, what makes the most sense for me? So we really, our first decision, I think, was the caution before that. I think there were 10 to 15 laps on tires. We were still at the back of the pack, 14th, 15th from that issue on pit road. And I, told Ryan, hey, if we can get to 5th or 6th, let's go ahead and stay out. We'll make some spots that way. And, hopefully, reset a little bit better. That didn't happen. We didn't have the opportunity to gain those spots. So we decided to put 4 tires on there. We'd at least have a slight tire advantage. Maybe we could drive through the field, or, the best thing could happen is we'd get another caution, 10, 15 laps later, and we'd have the opportunity to do 2 tires. And that's kind of what happened for us.
Yeah, it's stacking decisions. I think we forget that you guys, you're playing chess, man. You're 2 or 3 moves ahead. You're changing tires knowing another opportunity comes. But it didn't work for everyone. Great race car, but also a great drive. Like, how impressive is, I guess, both the car and the driver? I mean, that combination of 2 tires, just to put it in perspective for the fan, you guys had an unbelievable battle with Chase Briscoe on the restart. Chase Briscoe, James Small, the 19, is a very tough car. They went a lap down on 2 tires. You held off Bubba Wallace to win the race on 2 tires. An impressive final run.
Yeah, I knew really in that second stage, you had a really good idea of how good our car was. I think, we had the 21 was also really strong. He was right there with us within a second or two. Then you had the 23, was 4 or 5 seconds back. And then the next car, the 17 at the time, he was 10 seconds back. So, third of the racetrack back. And at that point in time, I kind of knew what we had in terms of a car. And I think in those instances, it's a little bit easier to make the risky call to get track position, because, you got maybe a little bit left in the tank compared to the others. But like you said, and like you asked me a minute ago, was that the only call or the right call? I think, honestly, in that position, I think whether we're leading or we're running where we were at the time, I think I was probably going to do 2 tires and make sure that we kept the lead.
I say this a lot on television. People always look at me about the strategy call, and I tell them I used to make the call that I was okay losing with, that I could defend if it didn't work, because it's nearly impossible to know what's going to happen the rest of the race. So if it doesn't work, when I go in the meeting on Monday or Tuesday, I want to be able to say, this is why we made the call. Even though it didn't work, I can defend the decision I made. It didn't make it any easier when it didn't work, but at least I felt I had at least an argument.
Right.
Well, let's talk about the I'm going to take this. You could put the blame on me. Pit crew. I heard after the race, they talked to you about your pit crew. You did have a little bit of a slow stop. The 12 team, I blame your speed on racetrack for the focus on the pit crew. The reason we know that the 12 has had some hiccups is because you're so darn fast. They normally happen from the front of the field. Those ones back in 15th or 20th seem to blend and don't get covered so much on TV. You have had to make pit crew changes, and the details aren't what is important to me. I want to just talk about the process. Sitting in your position at Team Penske with a pit crew department, how do you manage the process of a team, and when you have to make changes versus when you feel like we need to practice different, or maybe we coach them different to try to go slower? Like, tell the fan overall how you have to approach pit stops now that a 9 flat pit stop is 9-second pit stops are kind of the normal now.
Yeah, I think, the approach certainly varies from time to time, from week to week. There's a lot of different people involved. It's certainly not just my decision on, the guys that we have on the pit crew. Travis Geisler, Michael Nelson, my bosses, they play a really big part, a bigger part than I do in that side of life. We have Ray Gallahan as a pit crew coach that, is obviously a big part of that. And again, it does way more than me in terms of, trying to get those guys ready. We also have a lot of different teams. Obviously it's not just about the 12 team. It's not just about putting together a team of all-stars. There's a lot of, chemistry that's involved with all of those guys. And it's certainly hard to make changes. It's hard to make changes at various points in the year. At some point, like we did earlier, you kind of just got to suck it up and do it and try something different when you're not getting results. When I look at our guys, we've definitely gotten a lot more consistent. We haven't gotten to where we're as often, blowing up and losing, 10, 15 spots, going to the back of the lead lap. That incident that we had yesterday was, the first of those that we've had in a long while. So all the teams are having those too. I think when you're trying to run, 7-8 second stops at times, like these guys do, at their best and in practice, you're going to have those mistakes. And you just got to try to minimize them. And I agree wholeheartedly with what you said that, maybe we've had a couple more mistakes than some others, but we've certainly had more, when we've had a great race car and we're at the front of the pack.
Well, so to go through the numbers, these are powered by Racing Insights. So if you really don't like them, I would love to introduce you to Russell so you could argue with him about what it should be or not. But to your point, 9 mistakes on the year, but really clean since Sonoma. So most of those are front-loaded. It's a little unfair. There have been crew changes in there. I'm not going to go through them all. But you have coached it up. I know you gave credit to a lot of other people in the organization, but you're being the tip of the spear for the 12-car. Pit crews have improved dramatically. Pit performance has improved dramatically. The other thing you asked in the media center, so I'm going to give the answer. Where does everybody else rank? I have 9 on the 12-car. Denny Hamlin in the 11 is, when I look at, say, those top 10 teams in points, they have 7. So you're not alone for mistakes on pit road. We saw just this last week, William Byron's wheel comes off after 30-something laps on the racetrack. Does that shock you as much as it does me? Like they change 4 tires, they don't think they have an issue, coming to the green, maybe they have an issue, and then the wheel comes off. Like, does that keep you up at night that something like that can happen?
Yeah, it's definitely, a little bit surprising, and certainly not a situation that I've definitely had some experience with. So, I probably should keep me up at night, but I'm definitely not going to let it. I'm going to try to focus on the things that I can control, and that's certainly not one of them.
So you talked about chemistry. My last, conversation is your driver is known to be fiery on the radio. I've had conversations with him about it, and he's very open about, man, I say that stuff, but it's just kind of words, and I go about his business. And I agree. When I watch from up above, what he's saying on the radio doesn't look at all at the car I'm watching, right? His performance doesn't ever seem to change. He is as consistent behind the wheel as possible. Just talk about the chemistry you have between you and your driver. I pointed out at the start of this conversation, that championship trophy. Your numbers together are obvious. You have a championship and multiple wins. You seem so level-headed, and he's very fiery. Is that kind of the magic?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think he's a little bit more fiery on the radio and during the race. And once he has that racing helmet on, then he really is out of the race car. I think outside of the car, we're really similar. Honestly, we have a lot of, similar interests outside of the sport too, which kind of makes it fun. And, we talk music, we talk outdoor stuff, pretty often during the week. But yeah, when he puts that helmet on, he's definitely intense. The guys and I were kind of joking during the race because, we were running, I think 12th there after we had our mishap. And, he kind of let out a little burst that, I'm just stuck. I'm stuck behind these guys. And then 2 laps later, he's 8th, figured out how to kind of, pop the bubble. So, he's like any one of us. He kind of gets frustrated. He kind of, definitely voiced that opinion a little bit when he has the helmet on, but he definitely doesn't quit. He continues to fight. I've worked with a lot of drivers, and I'll say more than anyone I've ever been with, like, he's 110% all the time. And I definitely, am thankful for the opportunity to work with somebody so good, and hope we can have a lot of, successful years to come.
Yeah, well, you definitely know how to win together. Okay, be an analyst for me. You got a week, not off, but one more week of the regular season, and then we're going to buckle down. 10 races to a championship. What don't we know about this upcoming chase? Is it stage points? Is it the new format? Is it the lineup of tracks? When you look at it, what are us in the media not talking about that you think we should be? What's the storyline?
I think if you look at the regular season as a whole, I think that might give you a glimpse of probably what the chase could entail. And I think specifically, you've had 3 drivers really go on heaters. You had Tyler Reddick at the start of the year, Denny a little bit later in the year, and then Joey, I think, to end out the regular season. And each of those guys have made, tremendous kind of pushes and points that I think in any other points format probably wouldn't have, they wouldn't have moved so high. So I think a lot of people have kind of statistically, favor the top 4, 5, 6 guys in the standings, but you could definitely have somebody maybe a little bit lower. I think about, I'm not quite sure where Christopher Bell's at the moment, but I think about the fact that, he hasn't won any races at this point. And I think if a guy like that, gets on fire, he can kind of jump right through the standings in no time. So certainly, statistically, yes, the guys at the top have a little bit better advantage, but really it's anybody's taking. And I think you'll definitely see some guys kind of light fire.
Yeah, I love numbers. I think you're going to have to score between the reset and on racetrack like 440 to 460 points, right? So 470 points maybe. So Denny's going to start with 100. So he's looking at, scoring 380, 390 points. He's probably going to have a really good chance at the championship. You guys are going to be right up there as well. So I agree with you. That 10-race run is going to be fascinating to watch. Jonathan, look, I know you're busy. I appreciate you taking the time. I'd love to talk to you every Monday, man. Every time you win, you come on the show. We appreciate it. Congratulations to you, to the 12 team. We talk a lot about the chase and the points and whatever, but there's nothing like winning. I know that sounds silly, but I think that's what I missed the most, was winning with my team, the team that you kind of go into battle with. I appreciate you taking some time today.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
There you have it. Winning crew chief for Ryan Blaney and the 12 car, Jonathan Hassler. The Cup Series race at New Hampshire started under wet conditions. Jamie, I think it can be complicated. We've only really seen this 4 times. We saw it once at North Wilkesboro, once at Richmond, now twice at New Hampshire. When we don't use the word rain because we don't run while it's raining. They tried that. Carson Hocevar spun out under caution. They had to dry the track a little bit more, and then we finally got going under wet conditions.
Yeah, interesting part about the tires is rain tires have more grip than you think they're going to have. I heard some of the drivers reference that, but then you watch Hocevar spin out, you see Reddick spin out on lap 1 of the race,
Right.
and all of a sudden your confidence is a little bit lower. I would say NASCAR probably overdried the track a little too much. They used the Air Titans for 2 laps.
And
as
don't
you
think
see
that's for
here,
visibility?
well, yeah,
I think
for
they're
sure.
scared about the spray, right? Because you mentioned Coda. and
Well,
the big
that was
visibility.
that was a hurricane. That was a little bit different.
Yeah.
But yes, you're correct. The visibility, and it's not for the first 10 guys. It's the guys that
Yeah.
are going to be in 30th with just the mist that comes off. And I only say that because when the race started, you could almost see some dry patches on the on the track already. You can actually see that a little bit right here. A few places where the track had already started drying out.
Yeah, so if we take a look at this, you see the dryness right there. We get down into 1 and 2. 3 and 4, I think, is where it really jumps up. The dark area in the bottom half, that's just New Hampshire, right? The bottom 2.5 lanes have been repaved. They run not in the rubber. So they run on the apron or they run up
So
above
pause it when they get down to turn 3. When these guys get into turn 3, and I'm going to show you kind of a reference of what the drivers are going to use right there. Go ahead and pause it. So you see this new section that's been paved right here. That's kind of the no man's land. And at this
So
track,
from here, basically to here,
Correct.
it's all new.
yeah, and what's great about this track and it being the wet weather tire is that you have some reference points, because as a driver, you're going to use, whether it's the line you have here or these hash marks. Those are all reference points you can use as you enter the corner of where you're going to want to run. But they also have, as you mentioned, this massive patch that was put down years ago that gives you a reference of where that rubber is going to be. And the rule of thumb, you stay out of the rubber. And it's just the silliest thing ever, but like where there is no rubber, there's just a lot more grip. So it gives all these guys a good reference point. And I loved it when they dropped the green flag, because everybody was either committed to running the very bottom or they were committed to the very top. There was just no man's land through the middle.
Yeah, and actually, as we it's almost like there's a cushion. Like they literally, you can almost start to see, even right there. I mean, it's crazy to say, but you can actually see why. I know the pavement is already lighter, but this car width right here, this is the magical groove. This is where everybody's trying to run as the track dries.
Well, and if you're in that groove and you're pushing the car to the limit, if you slide up, it doesn't take much, but a little bit too much. This is the death zone when you get up to here. Do not want to get above that. You mentioned a cushion. It's probably the best way to reference that.
So I will say it wasn't the same for everyone. A few cars jumped out, and I'm going to talk about Trackhouse. We have SVG as an example. Zilich moved forward. The one at Chastain was hard to tell because he had a mechanical issue, but he looked like he was actually running some pretty good lap times. So I'm not sure if it's equipment, driver, or an approach, but those 3 cars seem to be some of the better ones in the rain.
Well, SVG, I mean, half second a lap at some points,
yeah.
faster than what anyone else could run on the track. He, and he referenced this. They felt like maybe just setup wise that they were set up, obviously, for a little slower pace than what once the track started dry. Because you said this, both SVG and Zilich looked like, well, if it stays wet all day, they're going to contend to win this race. But man, as soon as it dried, it seemed like those guys dropped to the back. So some of that could have been set up. I think also the fact that those are our road racing guys, a little more history of being in the wet and being comfortable of kind of getting to the edge or where that is. SVG did a really good job of moving the track down, I thought, on entry of the corner and being able to manage that.
Well, that's why I paused it here, because now there's not too, you can clearly see, right, this is dry and this out here is still wet, right? So
Damp, right? Not
Damp,
soaking wet,
damp, that's
but
true.
definitely I can tell you from inside the car, going down the straightaway, you're like, whew, I don't know. It's a little questionable.
So I find it great because you mentioned moving the line down. So they both, okay, back it up. Fire out the pipes. So this is where they feel like they have to lift. So, you know, you think they're still on the straightaway, but right there, they're both out of the gas. Now they're on the brakes, enter the corner. SV's doing this in the damp section. So he has confidence in his car on that damp pavement. And then as they turn into the corner, he's willing to go down, which we just talked about, you know, not wanting to be where the rubber is. He has the confidence to run lower than what the preferred lane is in the wet.
Yeah, and I wonder what Bell thinks in this situation, because you're putting a lot of faith in the guy to your inside. Like, do I race him off in the corner? Because if he gets loose, I mean, you're almost like better off to just let him go, right? Let him go on entry if they want to commit to that, because if he misses the corner and slides up the racetrack, he's going to take you out with him. But Shane did an awesome job being able to manage this. You see Bell gets in a little room, but look at how much he's able to get his car rotated, turn, gets a really good drive off.
To your point, and I didn't notice it till right now, but if I, you know, hold on a minute. If I do this, I think that the 97 has worked up with his right sides are now on the dry.
Yep.
And he's moved the 20 into damper conditions. Like
not as good.
Yeah, he's pushing him into the non-preferred spot. And at this point, it's kind of like a little bit of a dirt pass. Like, I'm going to just take the position.
I think you also have to take into account when this is in the race. If this is with 5 to go, it's a much different battle. But if you're Bell, you know your car's going to be good when it dries out, and it's okay to give up a little bit right now, because if you can't ruin your race early on. You got to make sure you can get to the end. I think it's a good job not over racing them. And Shane, I mean, once he got to the lead, dude, he checked out to 4 or 5 seconds fairly quick.
Yeah, John Hunter Nemechek got spun out. No caution in that situation. Let's take a look at the lap times. So we talk about drying racetrack and how it all works. I'm going to go to this right here. So this is basically, there's a lot going on. You see lap times on the left, 37.5 down to 29. This is all SVG's lap time. The shaded yellow in the middle, this area right here in the middle is just a caution. So if I just hover over it, we're going to see some lap times. We start in a wet track. We're in the 35-second range. We start to come down.
Yeah, this doesn't look like much. It's 5 seconds.
Right.
It's 5 seconds a lap quicker that the track, as it started drying out, as you mentioned, they got all the way down into the 32s.
So I call this lap 19, 32.66. This is like track now is reasonably dry. That's about how fast you can run on rains. We see a 32.43. And now the problem is these rain tires.
Well, they start searching for water,
They
right?
start
So they're
searching
getting
for water.
hot.
They're
starting to
blistering.
deteriorate. So now you're trying to run not in the optimal groove, trying to get just a little bit of water on your tires to get them cooled down. And you mentioned it. You can see the lap times actually start to go up a little bit. And I think that's just from the tires overheating.
So when we talk about dries versus slicks, now we're going to put some slicks on. And we're going to go out here and look, we easily get down.
Yeah, 30-second range all of a sudden.
Yeah, so a huge improvement in lap time, you know, and that's what racing in the rain is all about. And that's the difference between ovals and road courses, because at road courses, the teams have the option. So you got to decide. It's really, hey, I want to get slicks on as soon as I can where you don't think you're going to wreck. If you don't think you're going to wreck, we need to be on slicks. On the ovals, NASCAR determines it.
Yeah, I wish we could eliminate this, is what I wish.
Totally.
I would have loved to have seen the teams be able to, if they thought, you know, at lap 25, I want to put slicks on, or maybe a guy wanted to wait over here to lap 32. I would have loved, because, you know, if you look at the lap time difference, you're talking about 2 or 3 seconds a lap. It's almost like Darlington or Richmond, the difference. So you could be 10 or 12 seconds behind. If you get on slicks 2 or 3 laps earlier, you could have cycled to the lead. So I wish that, I hope that sooner than later we get to the point that they leave this up to the teams. And I know there's some complications from the team side of changes they need to make to the car, but that's fine. Like, if you want to go ahead and take your time to do that when the next caution comes out, it's great. If not, I think that we should open this up, because I think it just adds so much more of a story to the race without having to throw a caution.
So I think the 2 big things for me, we just talked about it. The first one is, when does it go to the teams? You and I both agree that's it. Second question is, when do we go to bigger tracks, if ever? I don't think it's fair for me. I've never hit a wall. I'm not a race car driver. I really think it comes down to the drivers. What is your opinion? Do you think we continue to graduate to larger tracks, or do you think we should keep this on kind of mile and less flatter tracks?
The weakness to me of going to the larger tracks, and you said this at the beginning of why maybe they overdrive the track, was for visibility. And I just have to think the faster we go, the harder that is going to be. If you think about, like, even when we have run at the Roval on the rain before, the mist that comes off that, it's pretty big. And I would also want Goodyear to be comfortable. Just the load is so much higher when you go to like a Charlotte or a Kansas. I don't know. That would take a little bit of testing. I like the fact that we can do it here, though. I mean, I mentioned this. I turned the TV on the other day and I saw it was raining. I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome. I don't have to do it, and I get to watch these guys go out and try to manage the race.
Yeah, and I'll add, 7:05 was darkness. If we have to drive that entire track, I don't think the fans that bought tickets to come out and get to see.
And nobody's happy then.
No, nobody wants to do that.
Yep.
So, well, there you have it. For the 4th time in NASCAR's history, we decided to put some track or cars on the track, an oval, in wet conditions. A lot of things went down on pit road at New Hampshire, but 3 kind of scratch your head moments really stand out. Jamie, let's talk William Byron. Let me just walk through it. He pits at lap 203 for 4 tires. About 20 laps later, he takes rights. A few laps later, the left rear tire falls off. After 19 laps of green flag racing, how does this happen? I have no idea.
Well, yeah, and Steve, we took a look at this earlier, and what you're waiting to see here is does the pit crew member throw his flag up? Does it look like they dropped the jack too early? Looks very similar to me on the right side. They both get around. The left rear guy maybe is a little bit behind right there, but as they drop the jack and I take a look at this guy right here, he doesn't seem concerned at all. And as you mentioned, it went almost 20 laps after that. Byron had not mentioned anything on the radio about having an issue, and then coming to the green on that last restart, he all of a sudden said he feels something funny. I don't think we really thought much of it. So this is puzzling, and it's got to be puzzling for Hendrick Motorsports as well.
Yeah, you mentioned it. It wasn't until after the 2-tire stop that William Byron comes on the radio and he says this to Rudy Fugle.
I might have a flat. Just checking here. Lefts are up. Lefts are up. Yeah, okay. It feels odd, I don't know. Everybody says their wheels are good.
And then shockingly, after that, they restart. He goes down on 3 and 4, and the left rear tire comes off. I mean, if there was any question, they absolutely would have changed left side tires. So for the fan who's looking for answers, so am I. If somebody has an idea of how
we're going to find out together.
Yeah, if you could find out how a tire comes off after 19 laps, that is shocking. All right, and another scratch your head moment. Let's talk about this one. And this one, we joke, but this is a scary looking situation. This is the 2-tire stop for the 20 of Christopher Bell. I'm going to play it, and then we can kind of go through. But just watch what happens. Exchange, a little bit of an issue. Bell leaves. Scary situation. Tire changer. Blake Houston was okay. A little shaken up. Take me from the driver's seat.
So a couple of things. When you're in the car, pause it for a second. When you're in the car and you know that you're doing 2 tires, there's a couple of things happening here. First off, the fact that you're doing 2 tires, there's still going to be these cars coming down pit road. So you're looking out the camera, obviously, in this case, to see what's coming. You're also listening to the spot or the crew chief, whoever's going to call you out. But I always like to look behind.
Because you're looking for traffic.
I always wanted to look behind and say, like, where's my gap? When I get ready to pull out, who am I going to be behind? And do I know where these guys are pitted? Do I know they're coming in right in front of me? Or are they clear at the other end of pit road? So you're paying attention to that. But then you're also referencing, obviously, this guy right over here. But if you play that, there's a little bit of a stumble on the right front.
I'm going to go slow so
it's almost like he has to go back for just a second.
I'm going to back
and
it
hit
up because that was too far. Let's watch it again, right? Tire goes on. He's tightened the tire. It's hard because it's behind that tire. And he starts to get up right here. You think it's tightened. He's getting up. Oh, he sees something. He goes back down.
But he doesn't tighten anything. It's just a little bit of a shuffle. And the one thing that we talked about is it's so close. When they drop the jack, this poor guy right here, he's got to be really quick because he's almost getting hit with the left front fender when they leave. But I almost have to think that Bell probably saw him start to get up, thought it was going to go, maybe takes a quick peek in the mirror to see who's coming down pit road, and it all just kind of gets away from you right there.
So you think there's a chance, because the 20 does stop, right? He's like,
well, for a sec he does.
I mean, right here, you think there's a legitimate chance he's thinking traffic, not pit crew guy.
Well, that's the only. Listen,
he's not going to drive through the guy.
Well, he knows that he's going to get a penalty. It's not It's not like
so
they might not see it.
It's crazy as this sounds, and I'm not trying to make it less dangerous. The penalty's right there. Once that tire runs over your own air hose, that's a penalty.
Right, and he knows that. I mean, everyone knows the rules, but that's all I could think of is maybe he's kind of peeking in the mirror. You're multitasking in that moment. Yeah. So is he just for a quick second glancing to see who's behind, or maybe the spotter's coming on saying, hey, we're clear behind the 19 car or whoever, and he's trying to figure out where that guy is. happens fast.
And yeah, 4.5 seconds.
Happens
We're
really
breaking
fast.
it down here in 3 minutes.
Yeah, we got to rewind it, play it slow,
Yeah,
happens
pause
fast in
it.
the car. Yeah.
All right, well, this one here needs some audio. I lost my mind on the broadcast because it was confusion on the radio. And I'd have been okay with the confusion until we threw Enchilada in the mix, which apparently was the code word for the 11. So this is a moment in time where not everyone was going to pit. Some were going to stay out. It was right around the fuel window. Listen in to the conversation on the 11 when pit road opens.
9 laps on tires. We'll pit when it's open. We're going to... Enchiladas. Be ready. Be ready. Okay.
We're coming, dragging the lot. 8 away. 5.
3, 2, 1. 4 tires, guys. Go, go, go. 4 tires. 4 tires. What are we doing?
It's unheard of.
What are we doing? I can tell you what you're doing. Nothing.
Nothing,
You're
yeah.
not doing what you should be doing. Okay, so let's start. I heard 10 laps on tires.
And so hang on, let me stop you for a second because as I listen to that here, there's a lot of static. I don't know that from Denny's perspective that you get that. I think the radios are much clearer in the car. Like I feel like when I listen to radios outside the car, it's there's a lot of distortion or maybe it's just what we hear.
Well, so let's
from the
talk about
outside.
this. These are not digital radios, they're analog, and I've studied this a lot. The car actually has one of the most powerful antennas because
Right.
everyone else wears their antenna, right?
Right.
Some pit boxes are plugged in, so the crew chief may have a big antenna. The spotter up top almost, so if you and I key at the same time, someone may hear you, someone else may hear me, someone
Right.
else may hear both. It's a messy system
Yep.
in general. They can both be keyed up.
Yep.
To your point, we are recording wherever this recording system had an antenna. So
Yeah.
how powerful that is. So 10 laps on tires, then the jumbled up mess, then a very quiet Enchilada, and then the pit crew's not ready. They were the 4th pit stall in, which makes this even
Makes it
worse.
even worse because as soon as he turned off pit road, you saw him gas it up to get to his pit stall.
Yeah.
But it was obviously clear when they came in and stopped. No one had any idea that we were going to be doing tires. There's not even really any panic going on of these guys until you hear, like, what are you
Watch
guys
this.
doing?
Watch this. I just want you, this is going to feel like an hour. This car comes in,
2, 1.
gas man's there, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005.
And they still don't really know what's happening, right? Like the guys are running around because they're getting yelled at. This is frustrating. There's no doubt inside for Denny as he sat there stopped, knowing how hard it is to pass at this track. It's late in the race. Horrible moment for the 11 team.
So, and here's my head-scratching moment. It's not the confusion on the radio. That has happened for years. It will happen for years. We just did a nice job of explaining how that can happen. This code word thing infuriates me because do I understand the level of competition? I do. Do I think if we're getting to the last pit stop of the day, we might have a card in there and I might say, hey, Jamie, this is going to be a last-minute decision. Look at your card right here. We're going to make a decision. I don't want to play my hand because I am pitting early. I don't want those guys to know. So if you're pitting in pit stall 1, we can, but we're already in a confusing situation. How about we're going to pit and change 4 tires? They weren't leading the race.
But do you think, listen, I'm with you on that. Do you think that they're just, like, the idea of this is that we're just trying to beat the 12 car out because we think we're racing him for the win and he's pitting?
I
don't know.
I mean, actually, in this situation, I would have keyed the button and said, we are pitting, because I want every car behind me to pit.
Right.
I want to be the first
Pull
car
them
in
in.
new tires.
Yeah.
I want to pull, the more the better. I don't want to come
And
on
I
my
almost
own.
think the code words work better when you're going to do 2 tires. If you're going to do 4 anyway,
Right.
yeah, I don't know.
Or maybe it's like, I can't
Hey, we
remember.
live and
port,
learn, right?
Port and starboard, right? Well, 4
Yeah.
letters in port. I could tell you whatever my code word is for 4, it would have 4 letters, right? 2 would be a really
You're
long
making
word.
it too easy.
I know. Then they could
Making it too
unscramble
easy.
it. But it was a messy pit road, but 3 completely head-scratching moments. William Byron. Oh, one more thing about William Byron. We glassed over this. They're going to lose a couple pit crew members for 2 weeks.
That's going to be just that's devastating
Into the
to
chase.
have that. I know
At
when it
Darlington,
starts.
of
Yeah.
all places.
No pit stops there. We'll be
4
good.
tires.
Yeah, never.
Hey,
have
I got a
tires
code word
on.
at Darlington. Pit. 4 new
4
tires.
tires. There is
That's
no
gonna be
code
my
word. That's right.
That's going to be a code word at Darlington. One race remains before the regular season ends. Let's talk about what we do know. Denny Hamlin locked in 1 seed. Ryan Blaney, not mathematical, but a big chance. He's probably going to stay second. There's some unknowns over by you on the right side between Cindric, SVG, Priest, Keselowski. I know it's very important for those teams, and I'm not trying to overstate it, but I think we all believe the championship contenders are coming from the left side of the board.
Yeah, I mean, I think don't push the buttons in trouble. He's 31 points behind right here. Again,
Don't push the button.
these
25
guys-
points would make a
that's
big
right.
difference.
Yeah, it would make a big difference for him. But I just don't see championship coming from right here. And as we get to the chase, that's ultimately what we're going to talk about, is who we think is going to win the championship. I think we're talking about Joey Logano and up is where our champion's going to come from. We've talked about maybe the top 6 being where you need to be within. But to me, what I have seen this year, if you get on a roll and you get on a run like Reddick or Hamlin, Joey Logano of recent, think about the run he's been on, I think we might see that you can come from a little further behind. It's all going to play on, though, what can Denny Hamlin do? Because Denny Hamlin's going to have that 25-point lead heading into the first race. If he doesn't have any fumbles, I think it's going to be really hard to make up that ground.
So at Daytona specifically, there are drivers that I think their chase starts at Daytona. Let's talk about Chase Elliott. He is 1 point behind the car in front of him, then 20 points, right? Has a little bit of a cushion behind, over 20 points behind. If Chase Elliott can move up 2 spots, that's 10 points.
It's a lot.
3 spots, 15 points. 10 points is 10 positions at Darlington. So there are all these battles throughout the field, right? Ty Gibbs and Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick's an interesting one. He cannot go backwards. Mathematically, the worst he can be is 4th. So how aggressive will Tyler Reddick be to try to get to Ty Gibbs? Because I will tell you, that is a 5-point swing from 4th to 3rd.
What's so interesting to me about what we have this year is in the past, for the past 8 or 10 years, we've talked about guys like this that mathematically couldn't get in because if they can win, they can advance in. But that's not really the case now, and I think it's much more important, the battle that we're talking about, as you mentioned it, between Chase Elliott up to, I guess, just in front of Briscoe right there. That's going to be a lot, and that could be the deciding factor if those guys get to run for a championship when we get to Miami or not.
I will tell you, I know it sounds crazy, but all the way over there to your right hip, that sounds silly, but these little red X's right here, that means your chances are over. That's the magic of this whole system. There's no get-out-of-jail-free card. There's no draw 4.
It's consistency.
It's unfortunate, but I think what makes the top more valuable is that people do become eliminated. They just haven't had a good enough year to continue.
Well, and it's going to be fun to watch because Daytona is one of those places that guys didn't put a lot of stock in, right? Now we're going to have a new rules package heading there. Think about the stress and anxiety on all these guys right here as they're trying to get their way to go and race for a championship.
Yeah, a lot on the line for sure. When the Cup Series hits the high banks, they climb to the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway, 7:30 Saturday on NBC, the final race of the regular season. The NASCAR Cup Series heading to Daytona to end the regular season with a new rules package. A few weeks ago, Denny Hamlin, myself, and John Probst had a conversation about just what changed on the car. Exciting times, so let's just go through it very quickly. It is a rule change for Daytona, which is a much smaller spoiler. We're going to go to the 4-inch spoiler, which is the same thing we see at the intermediate tracks. That requires a horsepower adjustment as well, less horsepower for overall pace. All right, let's go to the what. What should the fans expect? I always try to be a little hesitant. I just wait to see what it looks like. No one's the bigger expert, right? You've done this for decades now. What do you hope or what do you expect behind the wheel that the fans may see different or you may feel different?
Well, I think if I were a fan that didn't know what I knew, the first thing I would say is, well, we just had a great race in Atlanta. Why would you want to change that? And the difference is that one is 1.5 miles and one is 2.5 miles in Daytona and Talladega. So what we're essentially trying to recreate is Atlanta at Daytona and Talladega. So it happens organically at Atlanta, the space between the cars, because the cars themselves are grip limited. And the fuel mileage really doesn't happen because you have to be on offense constantly. There is no, if you watch the pack, there's no saving. Guys are dicing it up the entire race. So this is what we're aspiring to get to at some point. And it's going to take chunks here and there. This is our first bite at the apple with this. So what I believe is that, from the numbers that I've seen, it's going to be roughly a 33% gain in the right direction. Now, any gain is going to be a gain. And I can tell you from the driver's seat, what happens for us is that we spend the entire race fuel mileage saving all for that last pit stop. We basically know you have to be in the top 4 inside that last fuel window unless there's a big wreck to have a shot at winning. I mean, you come out 10th, you are log jammed, you're not going anywhere. And with the cars having them as much drag as they have on them, then you can't pull out of line to be offensive to get your track position back. So we're trying to make it to where it allows the drivers to pull out of line when they get a run, and then hopefully create a little bit of space between them to allow them to get back in line. And so it's not going to make them so apprehensive to go make that bold move with 30 to go.
All right, here at Inside the Race, we like to get into the details. So for the hardcore race fan, let's get into the details. That's why John's here. So start at the back. We've gone from a 7-inch to a 4-inch spoiler, reduction in drag and downforce.
Yep, and as Denny said, right, like that kind of locked together, we think was caused by the 7-inch spoiler in the back. We had eliminated the bubble, so to speak.
The air basically between the two cars.
Yeah,
they were
as you
able
close
to get
in,
bumper to bumper.
and that final little less than a car length, we feel now with the smaller spoiler, you'll start pushing that car away. You'll have to pull out and pass. As Denny mentioned as well, a lot less downforce. So we did have to make a change underneath the car as well to kind of get, you know, the balance of the car back to where we wanted it. So lots to unpack there, but the idea is, like, when you pull out the pass, you kind of got to get out and get going.
As the regular season comes to an end and the chase is just around the corner, Alex Weaver sat down with the defending champ Kyle Larson on another episode of Inside the Race Overtime.
Joined now by the driver of the number 5 for Hendrick Motorsports, Kyle Larson, who, perfect timing. I love when things work out like this. We had set up this interview with Kyle a couple weeks ago. I knew what the date was, and then he has, just in typical KL fashion, like a crazy weekend, just racing, doing what Kyle Larson does. And he gets a top 10 at Richmond, runs and sprints away from his race car, heads to Knoxville, where you didn't even know if you were going to be racing, but you end up winning the thing. You're in victory lane, climbing on top of your sprint car. So congratulations, friend, on Knoxville. What was this, 4 times for you?
Yeah, 4 Knox Nationals. So, yeah, just awesome to get the chance to go back on Saturday night and compete in the finale. I had ran my prelim night on Thursday and had a really good night to line ourselves up for the pole on Saturday, but obviously there was another race, the Cup race, going on at the same time, so I knew that I wouldn't be able to get back unless there was weather, and yeah, the weather came, and came just enough for me to get there in time.
So walk me through your Saturday. Like, were you going into Richmond being like, yeah, no chance I'm making it to Knoxville? Like, how many boxes had to check, and just walk me through the day?
So Friday, they rained out that portion of it. It had rained there quite a bit that afternoon, so they postponed Friday's program to Saturday morning. And so, yeah, I mean, I woke up and obviously going to check the weather and how that looks in both places. But in Knoxville, it looked really poor, which was going to be good for me. You know, I needed it to rain there. And honestly, I was just hoping for it to rain enough to where they would cancel Saturday and move it to Sunday. But then, so yeah, I mean, when I woke up, I felt very confident that it would rain out. It showed a lot of heavy rain coming after 6 p.m. And lasting through after midnight. So yeah, I felt confident, but then, you know, as I was watching the Friday night program, or the Friday program, or Saturday, Friday, whatever. Anyways, the weather forecast was getting better and better. Like every 30 minutes, it was kind of like whatever was coming must have been dissipating or something. So yeah, by the time it was, you know, time to get in the Cup car, it looked like the percent was nearly 0 for them to get rain. And then, yeah, so I was kind of bummed by that. But yeah, I had to run the Cup race and get focused on that, and really was just during that thinking and hoping I would have enough time once it got over that the A main there hadn't started yet, so I could watch on my phone. So yeah, when Cliff came on the radio sometime midway through the Cup race and let me know that they were delayed and hadn't started hot laps yet, it gave me some small hope that maybe I could get there in time. But still didn't really quite know what was going on. But and then, yeah, when the race ended, he said they still hadn't gotten going, and I had been excused from media. So yeah, then it was just a rush to the airport, and yeah, got to the plane and realized I would have enough time to get there in time to run the A main, and that's what happened. So it's just pretty wild that it all worked out perfectly.
So when did you get the official you were going to Knoxville? Was it the first time Cliff came on the radio and told you they were weather delayed, or was it not truly until the end of the Richmond race that you knew, I'm going to try and make this?
Yeah, not until the checkered flag came out and he said that they hadn't gotten started yet. Because the first
Wow.
time he gave me the update, I mean, we still had over an hour left of the race. And all he told me was that they had gotten some rain and they were delayed and hadn't started hot laps yet. So I didn't really know what that meant as far as were they a long ways from starting hot laps or were hot laps, just around the corner. And I didn't want to ask, I did not want to ask any questions because I just didn't want it to come across like I wasn't focused on the NASCAR race. So I was just kind of going to let it play out. And if it worked, it worked. And if not, and I missed it, oh well. But yeah, when I got after the checker that they still hadn't started yet, I kind of figured the timing I would be able to make it. So yeah, just glad it worked out.
The video of you outside of the windshield of your car, running, sprinting away from your car in Richmond was, I mean, does it get any more Kyle Larson than that? And how quickly did you make it to Knoxville? Like, what was the timeline from you running away to that car to landing in Knoxville?
Yeah, that quick little sprint to the trailer, that was as high as my heart rate got for the cup race. And then honestly, it was. But yeah, so during the race, I think they were organizing, getting my car staged and stuff like that. So yeah, I got changed pretty quickly, hopped on the golf cart, and they trekked me all the way around to the front stretch where they had parked me near Laburnum Avenue or whatever it's called. And that road kind of takes you directly to the airport. So yeah, I mean, from the time the checker flag flew till the time I was at my airplane, it probably wasn't more than 30 minutes. And then, it takes a little bit of time to get wheels up. So yeah, I don't know what time I landed exactly in Iowa, but it was probably like right around midnight or so central there. And then, yeah, I had a police escort from Pella to the infield to my trailer in Knoxville. And yeah, they were getting ready to push off the B main. So I really only had 25, 30 minutes to spare once I got there. So again, yeah, the timing couldn't have worked out any more perfectly. And glad the weather gods were on my side for once.
Of course, yeah. Well, let's dive in because obviously it was so fun to watch you and the kids atop the car in Knoxville and getting that win, which I know is just such a highlight for you and the season. But let's dive into Cup racing. You have a top 10 at Richmond. This number 5 team, you're coming off of a championship. Where are you at right now as far as executing how you feel about heading into the chase and winding down this regular season?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, right before we had all these bad finishes, I felt like we were in a super good spot. I felt like our car speed was close, and I feel like we were executing really good. And then the next 5 kind of came, and I really don't think any of that part of it has changed. The short track stuff is definitely probably our weakest, so that hasn't helped. But and then our team and pit crew, I feel like, has been executing really good. We just haven't gotten the finishes. I made a mistake at Chicago and spun out while running third. That would have been a really good night for us. I think we would have finished in the top 5 and scored a lot of stage points. And I don't remember what races were after that, but Indy, we were leading essentially and blew a left rear tire. And then we had an off week. I don't know, somewhere we finished halfway okay. And then, yeah, Iowa, John Hunter got into me and got me up the track, and then blending got in a wreck, and then the starter went out. So some misfortune there. I'm missing one other bad race, but Atlanta, we were fast, and I got caught up in a crash late, and then got too desperate there at the end of the race and ended up crashing myself. So yeah, just a string of bad races, but I feel like our team and our car and all that has been okay still. So it was good to go to Richmond and take probably one of our worst cars that we've had in this bad stretch and execute to a top 10. So yeah, I think that just shows like our team is still capable of of those championship style runs. Just you got to do it on a more frequent basis.
Big thanks to Kyle and Jamie for joining me here in studio today. Thanks for Jonathan Hassler for joining us on the show. And thank you, the fan, for staying with us here on Inside the Race.